Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Sports. I am Ralph LaBella.
And I'm Ron Sen. It's the end of the year, our final episode of 2014, and we have a lot to be thankful for in sports. Patriots are in the playoffs, have home field advantage. We're both fortunate to coach terrific groups of kids who are working hard. And the Red Sox season ended mercifully, and they have a chance to redeem themselves next season.
And the Celtics finally got rid of Rondo. And we've been asking for that for the last 5 years?
Well, it took 50 years to get trade with Cuba, but it only took one day to trade Rondo when they decided to do it.
But people in work, everybody comes up to me because they know that I dislike watching the Celtics with Rondo as the point guard. And they said, you must be happy. I says, ask me, what do you think about what they got? I said, if they didn't get anyone, I would have been happy. I mean, if you're going to rebuild a team, you cannot rebuild a team with Rondo on the team. No matter what they did, it wouldn't work until they got rid of him. Now the rebuilding will start. I hear they're going to start Nelson tonight ahead of Smart, just because, he's the veteran, very smart player, plays different than Rondo, gets everybody involved, doesn't look to control the game. So, it's going to be, I'm looking forward to watching the games now.
Yeah, they're still going to move, presumably, Jeff Green, probably Bass. Neither of them have futures. And we'll get to the Celtics and their core of talent, but it was clearly a case of addition by subtraction with Rondo. Puts him in a good situation. He has a chance to go for the big contract, which that's what it's all about, I guess, for most of these guys. But he has a chance to play with good players and maybe contend for a title in the West.
But I know what you're enjoying the most. I know it. I know you. You're enjoying coaching the sixth grade team. Tell us a little about it.
Well, it's very different. First of all, I'm a big person on culture and philosophy. I think you have to have a philosophy, and I enjoy talking with the girls before the games. Yesterday, for example, I was talking about the book, David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell. You're all familiar with the story of David and Goliath, so I won't bore you with that, but part of it is a story of classical warfare with land-based warfare with infantry, cavalry, which are horses obviously, mounted forces, and artillery. And you can apply that directly to basketball. If you're a big team and you want to play the ends, you're an infantry. If you're a running team that wants to play the floor up and down the whole 84 feet for middle school or high school, then it's cavalry. If you have outside shooters, it's artillery. Now, I said, what are we going to be? And they said, well, we can't shoot. So they got that, so that we're not artillery. And they said, we're not that tall, so we probably aren't infantry. So that means we have to start running more. So it's good. I get to explore issues about life with them. We talked about the origins of the word passion. They knew what passion meant. It means you like something a lot. But they didn't know that the origin of it is a word in Latin, passionem, which means to suffer or suffering. And for the people who are really great players, there's a lot that they have to endure to suffer. Kobe Bryant, for example, says, I don't work out, I black out. That's how hard he works at his age. He talked about seeing a new move by a college player, and he watched it 60 times on video, slow motion, back and forth, to see if he could incorporate it into his game. So I enjoy the teaching aspects, the culture aspects about, what we're about is first improvement, second teamwork, meaning unselfishness, and third is accountability. Accountability being holding yourself to a standard for the good of the team. And we go over that virtually every day, and they understand that now, and I think that will help them in the long run. And I don't know if I'll get basketball players out of any group, but I want them to be better sons or daughters, and of course, better students and ultimately better citizens. And I hope that in the long run we'll get there.
Yeah, and yesterday I talked to my team, and you're helping me. You're my assistant whenever you can.
Right. You
do have the sixth grade. You have your daughter. You have Lindley, and you have Mate too.
Right.
Haley Mate helping you. So you have a good crew there. And you talk about the two girls you have with Haley. She's still in high school, but Lindley and Karen were tremendous high school athletes, and they were tremendous captains. When I talk to people about Karen and Paula, your daughters, and I talk to them about Lindley, the first thing I say is they were tremendous captains. The kids respected them. You see it now with the younger girls, how much they look up to them. But that's what I look at first. I see what your daughters did in both volleyball and in basketball, how the younger girls, how they took them aside and worked them. I see how Lindley was with the younger girls. And that, I mean, that's a key. And it's great you have those two people with you.
I've told people Lindley was my favorite Melrose player ever because Lindley was hard-nosed. She didn't back down from anybody. She played both ends of the floor. I remember the game up at Wilmington against, I think it was Bishop Fenwick. Anyway, the game was into the second half. The opposition made a bit of a run. Lindley drained a three-pointer, with about 8 minutes to go that just kind of ended it for Bishop Fenwick. She didn't hesitate, just knocked it down as a sophomore. And that's how she was. She was always there, always played hard, very reliable player.
Yeah, we had her in the summertime. We coached the summer group, and we went up against some powerhouse teams, and her and Shea Petty. I mean, there were games where she outplayed Shea, as good as Shea was, playing in Europe now, playing pro basketball. And I remember games, and Lindley just outplayed her because of the heart she had. And then she, Lindley from there coached 2 years on the freshman team, and everything I hear about what she did there is amazing because the kids really enjoyed playing for her. Now, I mean, you're lucky enough to have her and Karen and Haley helping you out. And I mean, it's just great. I just look at it and I say it's great for the younger girls. I mean, because they couldn't be in a better situation.
Well, the big thing is getting players reps. And when you have more coaches, you can divide into smaller groups. There's more work with coaches. There's never enough individual coaching because there's not enough practice time. And there's nobody's fault, just there's not enough time. But over the course of a long period of years, hopefully there will be. Obviously, a lot of other interesting things in sports. I've really found the Pistons releasing Josh Smith amazing. Now, Josh Smith's a pretty decent player, kind of a mid-double-figure scorer, good rebounder. Obviously, totally a disaster as a team player.
Well, you know what I don't understand is Miami's trying to make room for him. That's what I heard tonight. But why would they have to? He's a free agent.
Well,
he's getting paid $12 million a year for the next 2 years.
Well, they're still trying to attract him with the biggest amount of money they can give on top. So he can even make more money by being a pain in the backside.
But it's not more money, though. Don't they isn't that the difference?
I don't know. I thought he just got whatever he got from the other team plus whatever anybody else would give him.
I thought if Miami, this is what I thought, if Miami gave him $6 million, then Detroit would go down to $6 million.
See, I thought it said he could make more money at the end of the deal because of this.
I'm not 100% sure. I thought it's a difference.
But anyway, to totally be a non-team player and then be able to profit from it seems wrong.
Well, no one wants him to. I mean, it's not hard to believe that him and Rondo got along.
That's what I was just going to say, that Rondo was one of his friends too. Supposedly, he's very close with Dwight Howard on Houston, so.
But you know what people have to realize about Rondo, what I want to say about Rondo? Rondo is one player that wanted to do good just for himself. You know what I mean? So he would look good. He could care less about the team came second to him. I mean, some players it's close, some players the team comes first. With him, he was up here and the team was down here. And if he did a triple-double, it was all, he'd want that extra rebound, and he'd out-rebound one of his centers to get it.
It's a paradox of basketball that the nature of the game is to improve yourself as much as you can, but for the welfare of the team as a whole. So you'd never hear Larry Bird or Michael Jordan or Bill Russell saying, it's all about me. Obviously, they got to celebrate winning. It was just, I think it was the anniversary of Bill Russell's first game in the NBA, it might have been yesterday, something like 56 years ago. But, Russell certainly mellowed over the years, but he was ill-treated in Boston during most of his career. And, he's still a bit of a controversial figure, although just to me, he's always going to be the greatest basketball player, Michael Jordan or no Michael Jordan.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember seeing him, when I was younger, and they'd be playing the Lakers in the finals, and they'd be out playing out in L.A. We never saw them with their green uniforms during the year because they never put them on TV, and you saw them with their white uniforms because you went to the games. So I remember watching them on, I'd go to bed early at 8:30, and my mother would wake me up at 11:30. That's when they played the games, the playoff games against the Lakers. It was like the biggest thing in the world. You saw the Celtics in green playing the Lakers, and Bill Russell. I mean, every game he was just unbelievable.
Well, one of the books that Russell wrote is called The Russell Rules. And where that came from is Russell didn't really like to practice that much because he played so hard. So one day he said, I don't really feel like practicing to Red Auerbach. So Red Auerbach said, fine, just go sit up in the stands and watch. So other players started to gripe, and Auerbach called them in and said, listen, guys, there's 2 sets of rules here. There's one set for Bill Russell, and there's one set for the rest of you.
And Russell played 48 minutes a game. What people don't understand, he played the whole game back then.
Well, and you look at a guy who averaged 23 rebounds a game for his career. If somebody gets 23 rebounds in a game now, it'd be front page news. That's what he did every night.
Yeah, I mean, those were great days. But it's funny, you go to the games and there'd be like 6,000 fans there. Now there's 14, 15,000 at games where the team's not in last place or not even in the playoff picture.
Well, and they were able to get him because the owner, who also held the Ice Follies show, was able to say that he'd give Rochester 2 weeks or whatever of Ice Follies whenever he wanted for X number of years if they promised not to draft Russell. So it was really the Ice Follies trade for Bill Russell, and that was really a folly for Rochester.
Yeah, but I'm hoping things go well for them. I'm not looking for them to lose and get a high draft pick.
No.
I want to start seeing them win games and really get better and better. I think what Stevens has to do, when he benched Olenek because he had a couple of bad games, and Zella's now playing center. I mean, that's okay, that move there, but, you have a young player, you got to watch it. Now Smart, he started Smart last game, but now he's starting Nelson tonight. And, you hope it doesn't affect Smart. My feeling is I would play Smart.
Well, you see some inconsistency in most of their players. Obviously, Bradley is pretty much what you see is what you get most days. Olenek played pretty well out of the bench. He was not nominated for Player of the Week for the 4 games that he had last week when they went 3-1. And Sullinger went into a little bit of a slump, but it looks like he's coming out of it. I think they'll move Green. They're going to need a shooter in his place, and longer term, I think they think that'll be Young.
Here are the 3 guys they got to get rid of. They got rid of Rondo, which was a great move. Bradley's got to go. I mean, I liked him at one time, a few years ago. He's got to go. He's the worst passer that I've ever seen. He's terrible. He passes balls down at your feet. He just can't pass. He can't. I don't know if he can think quick enough to make a good pass. He's a good spot-up jump shooter, which means off of the pass, he's got the legs. He gets up in the air, and when he's on, he's a pretty good shooter. He plays pretty good defense. He's overrated defensively. Every time he tries to pressure the guy, he always fouls the guy. He always commits a foul in the open court because he tries it once in a while. He'll get a steal, but Bradley's got to go and Green's got to go. So, in Sullinger, those 3 guys have to go.
Yeah.
Sullinger is not a presence down low. He'll score down low. He'll use his weight at time. He'll hit a 3-point shot, but you're not going to have a winning team with a guy like Sullinger.
It's really interesting to me to watch the NBA this year because I spend most of the time watching how teams get separation, what sort of plays they like to run. And there's an absolutely terrific site on YouTube. It's called bballbreakdown.com or bball breakdown. And they have just wonderful narrated videos of the way NBA teams run plays. Now, you see certain teams more than others, like the Spurs, because they're so great, but they were breaking down the Cavaliers with David Platt's new offense that he brought from Israel. They were showing how the NBA runs the high ball screen. They were showing how they run a play called floppy, where it was the play that Ray Allen used to use. He'd be in the paint, and there'd be a double screen on one side and a single screen on the other. He just works to get open on whichever side he can get the shot off. They show a lot of other breakdowns, something called the pinch post, which was weak side ball reversal off the triangle offense. And it just really shows how difficult it is for defenses in the NBA because of the skill of the player and the design of the plays. So now, at our level, it's not helpful because we don't have players that can execute that sort of thing. They need more fundamental work. But I do recommend the site for people who enjoy watching basketball so they could understand what's going on during the game. There's a lot more happening than you think is happening.
Oh, yeah, especially when you see, well, you remember the play, the pick Pierce used to run when he used to come through the lane and cut out and set the pick. If he didn't get the ball, and they would roll off that. a play I kind of like, well, for the younger kids, is it's tough to run unless you have point guards that that are quick enough. But just, you set it up, you balance the floor, you kick the ball to the wing, and then you just cut off of that. You don't get the ball, just like the Celtics used to do. You go set a pick, and you come from the weak side or the help side, and you go to the basket. Problem I'm seeing is that at this age, the age 6th and 7th grade, they don't see the floor well enough.
Well, I have a few players now that are starting to understand that you just can't stand still. If you pass, you have to either cut to the basket, cut to an open spot, or screen away. So just getting to the point where you understand that standing still is a liability is a big step. It gives you a chance to do something good as opposed to doing nothing.
We were talking about your team, and we were talking about basketball now. I'm starting to see, we're playing A ball against real good teams. We played against an unbelievable team the other night, and understanding the game well. We were running picks away from the ball, and a couple of players still didn't understand. They were going towards the ball to set the pick, and we got it after a while. We went over a lot last night with the players because, again, some of them, this is the first year, one player, and then the other players, they've been progressing, but, playing against this type of talent, you can't fool around. You've got to know what you're doing out there. They're starting to understand that.
Well, we were saying that yesterday, the reason you don't see these teams all winning state championships is because the talent gets diffused. The girls, for example, many of the girls who've been outstanding at Central Catholic over the years were from Methuen. So Methuen hasn't been a power in the Merrimack Valley League because they lose their best players.
Well, look at Melrose losing 3 of their better players, too. The Catholic won a state championship because they had...
Well, they won the state championship twice, so they won last year.
Melrose has had unbelievably bad breaks because when Melrose had those powerhouse teams, they were playing against Swords and Lincoln Sudbury. They were playing against Batista. Those are 2 state championships. You know what I mean? You're playing against Lincoln Sudbury, a Division I team with Swords on it. Melrose would have blown through the whole state that year, and they lost a tough game to that team. But, it's all about luck, too.
Right.
Because I'm going to be honest, I don't think Catholic played against no one compared to what Melrose played. Because all those good teams that Melrose went up against all went up to Division I now, and now it's a lot easier.
Well, in a lot of states, if you're a private school in that genre, then you need to, you get advanced to division. That's just how it is. So Archbishop Williams has been in Division III forever. They have a strong developmental program, and we won't say anything more than that. But we don't face them, but is it really fair that AAU coaches can coach their players year-round by having half the team? I don't think it's fair, but
no.
That's life. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Scott Duggan, Director of Strength and Conditioning at Athletic Evolution in Woburn, Mass., and we're back with Athlete Tips of the Week. Today we're going to bring you part 4 in our 4-part series on ACL injury prevention. We're going to go over strength movements today. For our final segment in ACL injury prevention, we're going to talk about strength movements that can help aid in ACL injury prevention. If I had to pick and narrow it down to 2 or 3 exercises, I would do as many knee and hip dominant exercises as I can on one leg. This helps add in addition to the strength that's going to solidify that knee, it adds in stabilizers as well and helps strengthen our stabilizers so that we can stabilize that knee when we're out there on the field. And if you think about it, most sports, when injuries occur or when we're looking at sports as a whole, the athlete is on a single leg the majority of the time. So we want to train that same way when we get here in the weight room and start to build strength around when that athlete's on that single leg. So for the first movement, we're going to do single leg squats. We're going to focus on strengthening our rectus femoris and our other quad muscles. But more importantly, we're going to build stabilization around that knee. So we're going to start by using a bench. You can use a box, anything you can find at home, so you can do this exercise anywhere. You don't necessarily need to be in a gym. We're going to be on one leg. You want to get probably about 6 inches to 1.5 feet away from the bench so the athlete has to push his butt back. We want the athlete to keep his chest up. And we're going to cue the athlete for counterbalance as he goes down to shoot his arms out and as he comes back up to bring his arms back in. So we're going to start out here, slow and controlled, all the way back down, tap, and come all the way up. we want to see the athlete slow and controlled down so that he can build the stabilizers and work on his eccentric strength. We don't want to see them rushing and dropping all the way up. So slow, slow, slow control, use those arms as balance, come all the way up. We're also going to look and pay attention to that knee, make sure that knee doesn't dip in, doesn't create valgus. If we see that happen, we can once again go back to our glute activation exercises. Prior to this movement, we can also bring in a band, hold the band around their knee if we have a second person, and cue the athlete to push out on the band as we've shown in separate segments. So once again, we don't want to have this, slow, nice and controlled, all the way down, all the way up. If the athlete's having difficulty keeping his chest up, or we want to begin to load the exercise, we can use a light dumbbell, or if they can load it, use a little bit of a heavier dumbbell. We're going to cue the athlete to come down, nice and slow, tap, and come all the way up. And then to progress it, just have the athlete load with heavier and heavier weight. They can use a weight vest, any object that's going to add weight, holding in the goblet position. For the second strength movement for ACL injury prevention in the series, we're going to do SLDLs. Once again, it is a single leg or unilateral dominant movement. In this case, our single leg squats was a knee dominant movement. This SLDL is a hip dominant or single leg deadlifts, hip dominant movement. So we can get a knee dominant movement in there and a hip dominant movement on there. And we want both to be on a single leg. So like we talked about, we can build stabilization around these joints, and athletes are majority of the time on that single leg. So we want to make sure we build strength. Squats, deadlifts are great. You get to load a ton of weight, you get to show how strong you are, but it's important to not neglect these single leg movements. So we're going to start out by teaching the movement to the athlete. A lot of younger athletes need to start here, and it's good to do it with body weight because you can do it anywhere. So I'll go just from the side so you can see. We want to keep our toe facing forward. You can use a wall, you can use a dumbbell rack, you can use a cone, but we want something for the athlete to aim at, and they're going to reach their hands towards it. They don't need to actually touch the object, they're just using that as a guide. And what we want to do is reach out with both arms. We're going to focus around bending around the waist. The knee can bend, but it's going to bend naturally with our waist. We don't want to focus on it, just like when we were talking about hip hinge. We're basically hip hinging, but we're doing it on one leg. Our leg's going to go straight back, and we want to create a straight line from our leg all the way to our shoulders and head. We don't want to break that hip, so we don't want here and then to dip down to break that hip. So we're reaching straight out, nice, slow and controlled, far as we can go. Straight line from our leg all the way to our shoulder, and then we're coming all the way back to hip extension, so we have a straight line all the way up again. And we're trying to keep that leg off the ground the entire time. Don't put it down if we can, so we can continue to work that balance and stabilization throughout the exercise. Reaching out nice and slow, make sure the athlete's knee doesn't dip in, tell them to track their foot. If they're breaking at the waist, cue them to reach all the way. That's going to keep everything in a straight line. And once again, the range of motion is dictated by the athlete. So if an athlete can only go here and come back without breaking their waist, that's what we want. We don't want them to go further just so they can get further and then have them break the waist. So form is very important, just like all the other exercises we've gone through. Once an athlete's mastered the movement, now we can bring in a dumbbell, start to load it. When we're doing one dumbbell, which the athlete will start at, it's always the leg that goes back, the dumbbell's in that same arm. So if I'm on my left leg, I'm a big chest, shoulder pulled back, the dumbbell's nice and relaxed, I don't rock it, I don't hold it out. Mechanics stay the same, I can add a reach for guidance, come all the way up, try not to put that foot down, nice and balanced all the way through. From there, we can progress to 2 dumbbells. If the athlete wants to load it up more, now it's big chest, shoulder back, toe facing forward, they don't need to aim at anything. Go as far as they can without breaking that waist, try to stay on one leg the entire time. Come all the way through for full hip extension. Last strength movement we're going to do is a core movement called pow-off presses or anti-rotational presses. It is a core movement, very, very crucial because it allows us to activate our core to prevent rotation, which is very important in sports. If someone's trying to push us or rotate us away we don't want to go, we need to have our core turn on to make sure that that doesn't happen. Core is very, very important in injury prevention. You want to make sure that you don't just get this exercise in, but you get as much core as possible. The core is involved in every movement we do, especially running, jumping, cutting. The more our core can stabilize ourselves, the better chance we have at preventing ACL injuries. So we're going to start with power-off presses, anti-rotational presses. We're doing this on our Kaiser functional trainers here at Athletic Evolution, but you can also replicate this same movement on any cable pulley system over there, just like the Nautilus, or using a band, any band you can find at home with a partner. So just imagine this either being a band or a pulley system from the side if you don't have a Kaiser functional trainer, or hopefully come in here and train with us at Athletic Evolution. So you're going to start out phase 1. Tall kneeling position. So tall kneeling, we want to be on both knees. We want a straight line from our knee to our ear. We want the resistance, whether that comes from the functional trainer or a band, to come at a 45-degree angle. We want to start with it right at our chest. We're going to wrap our hands together, lacing the handle or the band. We're going to start right in the middle of our chest, tall kneeling position. We're going to press straight out right in front of us. We're going to hold 1 second. The resistance, whether it's the band or the functional trainer, is going to want to pull us into rotation. We want to use our core to prevent rotation, hence the name anti-rotation. Pause 1 second. We're going to go 8 reps, 8 to 10 reps total. To make more difficult, we can increase the resistance, whether increasing the resistance band or the number on the functional trainer, and then we're going to switch sides, making sure we get it from both sides. Squeeze, make sure we lock our arms all the way out. We don't want to be rushed. We don't want to come and not to full extension at the top. We don't want to be down or over here to overcompensate or let us pull all the way to the side. Squeeze, 1 second hold, bring it all the way back, 8 each side. Phase 2, we're going to progress to standing. So now this is something you see more on the athletic field. When we're in a standing position and something forces us into rotation, we got to use our core to prevent rotation. We want a nice athletic base, feet about shoulder width apart, nice athletic stance, bend at the waist, bend at the knees. We're going to lace our hand around the handle right to our chest. We're going to squeeze our core, press straight out, lock our elbows out right in front of our chest, hold 1 second, come all the way back. We're going to go 8 to the right, and then switch all the way to the left side. The last progression, we're adding in balance, stabilization. We're going all the way to single leg, so you're going to need to drastically decrease the resistance on this. Whether it's a band or whether it's the functional trainer, we're going to split the reps now. So if we're doing 8 or 10 reps, you're going to do 4 or 5 reps on each leg. So the resistance comes, now we're standing on one leg. We're pressing straight out, squeezing our core, activating our stabilizers. 1 second pause. We do 4 reps on the right leg, 4 reps on the left leg, and then we have to switch resistance from the side. 4 reps on the right leg, and 4 reps on the left leg. Now you're adding balance and stabilization, becomes much more difficult, but now you can see the translation. We talked about being on that single leg, getting our stabilizers to fire, getting everything activated properly. So this is just a small segment of what you can do on your own to prevent ACL injuries. As you've seen, there's a lot of things that go into it, from mobility exercises to help improve range of motion in the joints above and below our knees so that we take less stress off our knees, to activation exercises to make sure the proper muscle groups are firing, to help stabilize that knee, help our strength and our power movements, and most importantly, to put our knees in the correct position and prevent this valgus stress from happening or our knees coming in and putting the athlete in a bad position. Then progressing on to our dynamic movements, whether that's unilateral or single leg jumping or bilateral and double leg jumping, to teaching proper running mechanics, and then into our strength movements. As I said before, bilateral or double leg strength exercises are great, but single leg exercises are more important for ACL injury prevention and also athletic performance, because we talked about being on single leg for the majority of your competition. And then most importantly, adding in as much core as you possibly can to make sure that that core is nice and strong to take any stress off your knee. You got to combine all of these things if you want to properly prevent ACL injuries. And this is very important, especially when we talk about field sports, especially as we're getting into the winter and we start to talk about basketball on the court. Very, very high prevalent injury ACL injuries are on the basketball court, whether it's male or female, and especially in the female population when you talk about soccer and basketball, about 1 in 4 get ACL injuries. So it's so important to not just do strength and conditioning training to increase athletic performance, but also to do it for injury prevention. So make sure you're building these exercises into your workouts at home, and hopefully if you live in the Woburn area, you can come out and check out Athletic Evolution, located on Olympia Ave, right off the 95 North on-ramp. Come in, check out me or one of our other trainers. We'd be happy to take you through our wide variety of strength and conditioning programs that all have injury prevention components in it, whether it's our sports-specific or athletic enhancement programs. Thank you for staying with me for Athlete Tips of the Week. Hope to see you guys back on the show itself or in here at Athletic Evolution in the future.
Welcome back. It's almost that time of year, playoffs in the NFL. The Broncos were good enough to lose last night to the Bengals. Certainly made me wonder whether there's something wrong with Peyton Manning, because unless he's directly stepping into the throw, he ends up, throwing the ball kind of soft.
How about their defense too, Ron? I don't know about the Broncos. I thought earlier in the year I said they were going to be tough to beat because of their defense and the way the offense was playing with all the talent they had in the offense. But you play those 16 games, it takes a lot out of you. It's taken a lot out of Manning. He's going to have a week off to rest. Actually, 2 weeks now. Because I don't know if they clinched they may not have clinched the bye yet.
I don't know if they have, because I think.
So they may have to win that game next week.
Yeah, the Indianapolis might have the same record. I'm not sure.
And the Patriots, they clinched the home field advantage.
The one thing that maybe will help the Patriots is that Silver Salinga came back somewhat late, so he didn't have a whole year of physical abuse, and Alan Branch came late, so they have a lot of extra beef up the middle that Will Fork hasn't have had to play 85% of the snaps or whatever. I don't know if you saw the graphic that Devin McCourty put up, Air Woolfolk. So he has a silhouette that looks like Michael Jordan, except with Will Fork's body.
You're coaching the Patriots. What do you do next week?
That's exactly one of the questions. Well, I can understand that if you want to play the starters for 2 series, but what happens if somebody gets a concussion or a sprained ankle? So I would sit Brady, sit Gronkowski, sit Edelman with his concussion, and then on defense, I'd sit McCourty, sit Revis, Hightower, and Jamie Collins.
Okay, the way I look at it is anyone who's healthy on the offense plays, all right? Because the offense is playing terrible right now. And you give them 2 weeks off, which they'll have, they're going to get worse. You talk about losing the edge. They don't have the edge right now. So they got to get the edge. So if I was coaching that team, everybody in the offense plays. Edelman, if he's not healthy, if he still has problems, you got to sit him down. But anyone else, Conley, he didn't play last week. Maybe he needs two more weeks off. But everybody else should be playing. They got to get that offense back.
Well, the offensive line is a mess right now.
Yeah. And then defensively, I would sit some of the players down. I'd sit Revis defensively because I wouldn't sit any defensive linemen down because they stunk the other night. When you think about it, defensive linemen didn't get close to the quarterback in that whole game. I was watching the game. I had a game, so I went home and I caught the second half of the game. They didn't get close. You watched the whole game there, and they weren't even putting any. You watch both lines run. Both of the Jets' lines dominated the Patriots' lines, and the Pats still ended up winning. So that's one thing. I'm worried about that. I'm worried about the offensive line, and I'm worried about the defensive line. They were starting to put pressure on the quarterback, but the Jets did a great job against them. They've got to, even if they don't get to the quarterback, you've got to push that line back.
Today they were discussing about a special kind of pick block where they would just try to stand up the tackle and then bring in somebody from outside and sort of like off a screen and go in there and rush Brady up the middle. So they said that'll be something the Patriots have to focus on because other teams can do that.
Well, they did a better job in the second half, the Patriots, but Brady went with the hurry-up. Why don't they go with the hurry-up when that happens? You go with the hurry-up, you're going to get the defensive line tie it quicker.
You mean like we've never seen that before, like the Super Bowl?
Well, the Super Bowl, they didn't do it against the Giants when they were undefeated that time. They did it in the last drive, and they scored a touchdown. They should have did it the whole second half. None of those defensive linemen would have been on the sideline half the time.
Now, in the AFC, do you see it just as the Patriots and Broncos, or do some of these other teams have a sniff of a chance?
This year, anyone in the playoffs in the AFC can win it. This year. I thought it was going to be the Patriots until the last 3 weeks. The offense has been absolutely terrible. You know, Brady's been terrible. The offensive line has gotten worse for some reason. They were playing great there for a while. But, you know, I'm hoping what they did in the second half will help them. But when you look at the offense, I mean, Brady, this is the worst Brady has thrown a football.
I know you're hearing a lot of people saying, well, the defense is strong enough so they can just win on defense.
No.
Well, my concern with that mentality is what happens when Browner gets the pass interference or the illegal contact or holding, which he does every play, in the fourth quarter of the big game. And that's the deciding play. You know, I just don't, I mean, Revis seems to be able to get away with it pretty much.
Ron, everybody was excited when the Patriots were scoring for 30, 40 points a game during that stretch against good defenses. And then all of a sudden, the last 3 weeks since the Green Bay game, well, Miami in the second half, they scored. You know, but they got a lot of breaks in that game. I mean, they don't have anybody who can go downfield again. And when they go downfield and they're open, Brady just overthrows them.
Well, and it's really interesting to see how the world in Vegas sees the game. So Buffalo, before the Monday night game, the spread was 10 points. After the Monday night game, now the Patriots don't have to win the game. The spread's 3.5. You know, it could get smaller.
But what I would think about if I were a bettor in that game, they're not going to sit Brady. There's no way Belichick's going to sit Brady in that game.
I don't think he'll want to sit either.
He's going to, this is the best way I can explain it. The third game of the preseason, that's when the starters play the most. Mm-hmm. They'll go into the second half. If they're playing well, you know, he'll let them play one set in the second half and then take them out. If they're not playing well, he'll keep them in longer. I think that's what's going to happen here in this game. He's going to keep the starters in there on offense until he's comfortable that the starters are sharp, playing good football. So say in the first half they score 4 touchdowns and they're playing great. Maybe he'll sit them the second half. But you still want to win a football game.
Well,
but I want to see Garoppolo play too. He can throw the ball. You're going to watch him. If he plays a half, watch his touch on long passes.
Well, the other thing about Garoppolo is he's way more mobile than Brady. I'm not Brady. We're not lobbying for Garoppolo. Just saying that we will say, when you look at the NFC and you see Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, not so much Romo. Romo can move a little, but not like they do. I mean, to me, Wilson is just playing absolutely spectacular. His quarterback rating, passer rate is in the 96 range. Brady's is 98. And Wilson has 842 yards rushing, and he makes so many big plays with his legs.
Well, what did we say in the last show when you asked me that question?
Yeah, we talked about MVP.
It's Rodgers and Wilson, 1 and 2. And then me, it was Brady. And I think you had it about the same.
Yeah, about the same. You know, DeMarco Murray's had a great year for the Cowboys, too. And the Cowboys are good. They got tough offensive line, defensive line. And Des Bryant is a terrific player. You know, somehow he's managed to keep his baser instincts in check this year.
But, you know, even though the Pats, right now, I'm a little worried about them. I hope they have a good game against Buffalo and they come out and really sharp in the first playoff game. But I'm a little worried about the lines, penetration from the defensive line. I mean, they have 2 of the best linebackers in football now in Hightower and Collins. And those 2 guys they picked up, Ayers and...
Yeah, Ayers is an unrestricted free agent, but I would think that they will probably try to sign him.
Some of those cornerbacks better start playing better football, too.
Right.
Stop relying on Revis and Browner.
I was looking at the cap figures today, and the Patriots are $7 million under the cap. Now, their argument is they're always using the money and rolling it over into the next season and blah, 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 you know, we'll see. There's always money coming off. There's always money going on. So, I mean, they know what they're doing. You know, I don't really think the Crafts, with all the money they have, the $7 million is really chump change to them.
But you know another thing, too, with the Patriots, maybe because they had that tough schedule and they played unbelievable football, maybe it took something out of them. Maybe when they do have that 2 weeks off, that they'll come back sharper.
There was a statistic before last week that 8 consecutive weeks the team that played Seattle failed to cover the spread the next week because they were so beat up, or at least that's the theory. Now, Seattle just looks unstoppable to me right now.
Oh, their defense. Now, Carroll is a better defensive coach than Belichick. I'm watching Seattle play, Ron, right? The team they were playing, they like to run their slot backs.
Oh, Arizona?
No, not last game, the game before. And they were coming across the middle all the time.
Is it Philadelphia?
Whoever it was.
Okay.
But you watch Seattle, their linebackers, they open up the guy to the next linebacker. So when they're cutting, in the Patriots, they're chasing. It seems like they're chasing them all the time. Well, it's the way Seattle defends it is that the linebacker will stay with him, and he'll open him up to the next linebacker. And you watch the plays, and the announcer talked about it. I mean, they're so well coached.
Well, I think it's Irvin they have as a linebacker. They have Chancellor, who's a safety that is just brutal back there hitting people. They have Sherman at cornerback, who's very similar to Revis as far as his ability to cover. He's got the most interceptions in the first 4 years of a career, like in the last 30 years. That's how good he is. And he was a 5th-round draft choice, so I think out of Stanford.
But you look at that, and if the Patriots play them, if the Patriots don't have anybody who can go downfield, just imagine what Seattle's going to do to them. I mean, they're going to be blasting everybody across the field.
A couple of years ago when they went to Seattle, Wilson, the Patriots secondary was a mess, but Wilson burned them a couple times deep.
Well, the big thing is that, again, they got to come back Sunday, the offense has to have a good game. They'll have 2 weeks off to get back to where they were several weeks ago. And if they're back to that level of play, it's going to be a great Super Bowl.
Well, although we like to think ahead, today when asked about clinching a bye and home field, Bill Belichick naturally only said, I'm only talking about Buffalo. Our concern is Buffalo. He is the great white shark of coaches. He's only worried about his next meal. He does not look ahead to tomorrow's meal. He is so consistent in his approach to the game, which is part of the reason he's boring and successful.
Yeah, he said he wasn't going to be watching the game. They're going to be going over the game plan because they lose a day. Christmas, they're not going to practice Thursday. So they lose that. So they have to move everything up. But I can't believe he didn't watch the game. I mean, you're going to watch a team that you might be playing. You're going to watch Denver to see how they're playing. But he probably taped it also and probably watched it after.
Yeah, these professional football coaches are 18, 20-hour-a-day careers in season. These guys, they don't have family, they don't have friends, they just go to work. It's them and donuts.
But again, if they play, you don't worry about Seattle right now. You want to get to the Super Bowl. So you're going to have to beat teams like Pittsburgh or Cincinnati or Indianapolis. I hope they face Indianapolis.
Well, at least Baltimore's gone.
Yeah, that was the one team. But you hope they play a team like Indianapolis because Indianapolis can't beat them. Their defense stinks. Even though the Patriots aren't sharp right now, by the time they'd face them, they would be.
Well, it certainly had to be a downer for the Colts fans to see the Cowboys just manhandle them this weekend.
That was
I
unbelievable.
don't know what the final was. It was 42-0 when I stopped watching.
Who knows? It'd be great to see the Patriots, hopefully if the Patriots make the Super Bowl, play the Cowboys.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Well, like we said, we'll just worry about getting there first. Yeah. Now, another interesting side story is what happens to Jim Harbaugh. Everybody knows he's not going back to San Francisco. I don't really understand why San Francisco, they had a lot of injuries too, but obviously whatever Harbaugh was doing just stopped working totally this year.
Yeah, I think they shut him off, some of the players, but he's going to Michigan.
You think?
San Fran, I know, they really collapsed, but people talked about it, how 2 years ago San Fran and Seattle were the two top teams there. And, they were better than the Patriots, people are saying, but look at the Patriots, they keep going along.
Well, they're saying the other possibility is Oakland. Now, the Davis family has never really, they'd have to give him total control. He'd have to be the GM, the everything, director of football operations.
And Oakland has a pretty good defense,
Right, they're not bad.
They have a pretty good defense. But I think he's going to go to Michigan.
Well, certainly, obviously that's where he came from, and he's highly regarded there. They have a new athletic director at Michigan because the other guy got basically fired.
But what better setup could you have? Michigan's been on a down for the last few years. He's going to go to Michigan, a great college, a great program over the years, and he'll bring him back. He'll bring him back.
Well, we obviously know that Jimbo Fisher got an 8-year extension at Florida State, and he has been nothing but totally supportive for Jameis Winston. You know, Winston to me is just a blemish upon college football and needs to go to the NFL as soon as possible.
What year is he in?
He's a sophomore.
That's right, he's a sophomore.
You know, he had, I think I saw that he had 24 touchdown passes and 17 interceptions. Now, there was a question of one game whether he was point shaving. So, I mean, you name it, he's in trouble with it.
But in that, I hope Florida State loses their first. They're playing
Oregon.
Oregon.
I think, yeah.
So Oregon, I think Oregon will destroy them. I think it's not going to even be a close game.
Well, I mean, Florida State could barely beat Boston College.
Yeah, I think Oregon's going to win by at least 20. You'll see 45-21 or something.
They had a really nice article about Troy Murphy in the paper the other day, the quarterback for BC. He transferred from Florida. And they said he's just the nicest kid. He spends time with the alumni. He spends time with the younger players. He got an award for being the team's most valuable player. And the athletic director said the first thing he asked him was who he should write the thank you letter to. So it's just, he seems like a really nice kid. Now, obviously, he's probably not going to be an NFL quarterback, but maybe there's some other position he can play.
This is his last year, right?
Right.
But it's going to be great seeing him play against Penn State. You know, it's great when you go up against the, the well-known schools, universities in New York. So that's great for BC. And it was good that they signed the coach to, what was it, an extension of 4 years or something?
Oh, I think it was to 2020.
2020.
What's his name?
Adazio?
Adazio, yeah. So, he's done a very good job. The team's, I think they were 7-5 this year. They're going to the Pinstripe Bowl in New York. Obviously, BC's, well regarded in the area. There was a terrible story about one of their former players who was involved in an assault in Boston on a homeless man with another player, and the player got 5 years probation, and I think and his initial sentence was suspended, and he got 5 years probation. But the attack only ended when another woman jumped on the homeless person and stopped because the players wouldn't hit the woman. And
that's unbelievable. They were probably drinking or on something, drugs.
Who knows? But obviously, it's nice when you have athletes who are not only excellent at sports, but good role models. They're on track to graduate. They are good citizens. They speak well. That's what we want for our community. And why wouldn't any community want that? Why would you bring players with poor character into your program when character is such an integral part of every reasonable program?
Well, especially now in the NFL. I mean, you really got to look at it, especially when you pick these players. I know a lot of coaches, and Belichick's been one, takes a shot in the third or fourth round on these guys.
Well, it's Jameis Winston or Marcus Mariota. What are you going to do? You're going to take Mariota, who's All-American kid, or Jameis Winston?
But some teams will take.
Absolutely.
Take Winston.
Tampa needs a quarterback. The Jets still need a quarterback. Oakland might be okay with their situation. I don't know.
With Carr?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's okay. He throws the ball okay, can move a little. I mean, I like Oakland to be in the next couple of years. I mean, especially if Harbaugh goes there.
Yeah,
they're going to be back in a couple of years.
They've been competitive. We'll be right back. Well, the less said about the Bruins, the better. I believe they're 3-5-2 in December. They are in the bottom 10 in the league in scoring. They're in 10th place in the Eastern Conference. They're just miserable. And their best player, scorer perhaps, is on the Dallas Stars with 25 goals and 17 assists. He leads the league in goals by 5, Tyler Seguin. Now, you give a 20-year-old millions of dollars, you think he's going to stay home watching film all night, or is he going to be out? Now, it's just sad.
Chiarelli and Julian, I mean, you just look at it and how they could make that decision. When they made that trade, I don't know enough about hockey, when they got Erickson and Kelly, I believe, right?
Riley Smith, I think.
It's Riley Smith and someone else. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, well, maybe, those two players are really good. And you see, and I'm saying, the kid's 20 years old, and you're giving up on this number 2 draft pick. supposed to become a superstar. I saw him in some games, the moves he made when he scored those 2 goals. And then all of a sudden you're seeing games and you're saying, why isn't he getting the puck in the open ice? Why isn't he touching the puck in the open ice? He's never in the open ice with the puck. Again, I don't know enough about hockey, but I know that great players always have the puck in the open ice. And I'm wondering, I mean, what do you say? My feeling is that Chiarelli and Julian have to go.
Well,
I mean, you got the general manager and the coach who doesn't want his style of
we're in an
play.
era of specialization. So you don't send Mike Trout or Miguel Cabrera up to bunt. They don't do that. They don't have to do that. When you've got the big gun, the cleanup hitter, you let him swing away. And coaches that try to totally change people's style because it suits them don't win.
Right, and then on the power play, I mean, what do you need, especially if he's in the open ice in the power play? He should be on the power play all the time. He was very rarely was on the power play with the Bruins. A lot of because Julian didn't want him out on the ice because for some reason he didn't work hard enough in the corners. Well, you know, not all of superstars in the league work hard enough in the corners, but to give up a star scorer, one of the best scorers in hockey, you know he's going to be one of the best scorers, and now you have what you have now. I mean, who's at fault? Chiarelli's at fault, and Julian didn't want him.
Well, at the end of the day, sports is a bottom line business.
So why is he still a general manager and why is Julian still a coach?
Results matter. Well, probably because they gave Julian another extension, I think, for 3 years on top of his current contract, so they'd have to eat that money. And I don't see Jeremy Jacobs too likely to eat that.
But I mean, when they won the Stanley Cup, they were playing great hockey. Sagan was on that team. I mean, they were playing great hockey. The next year they played pretty good hockey. You know, they lost. They were almost as good as they were when they won. And the next year they played pretty good.
Well,
but they're still lacking the score. Not only have a right wing
to
play with Krejci.
I'm sure the argument is, well, they're hamstrung by the salary cap. Well, whose fault is that?
Yeah.
You know, and then they say, well, we signed the goalie to a $7 million contract. Well, maybe you have to trade him then.
And then they trade the best all-around defenseman.
Right.
They trade him. He was their best all-around defenseman. He's better than Chara.
And well, Chara's, what is he, 37 years old?
Yeah. I don't know what they're thinking about. I really don't.
Well, we're not hockey guys, so it's easy.
No, but I watch the games and I get aggravated because they can't score. And I look and I see, you know, Sagan just got 2 more goals and an assist. I mean, he's how old is he now? 22?
What is it, LaToya Jackson? What have you done for me lately? That's the song that we're all singing.
It's unbelievable.
Baseball, sometimes nice guys get paid. So David Ross signed a 2-year, $5.5 million contract with the Cubs. He rejoins John Lester. You know, he's on the twilight of his career, and he's still getting paid.
He's good defensively. He's a good team player.
Not so bad. And Jake Peavy signed a 2-year no-trade deal with the Giants for $24 million.
He got $12 million a year?
$24 million.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable what they're getting. I mean, Masterson just got $9 million after having a year, but he was hurt.
Well, we can talk about that. The Red Sox, the question is, what World Series team that can you remember that won without having an ace? You know, I don't know. Now, are you going to say, well, Madison Bumgarner is not really an ace? Well, he is. I mean, the way he pitched for the Giants last year. When the Red Sox won, obviously they had Schilling, they had Pedro Martinez. They had Lester when they won 2 years ago. So they've certainly had him. I just don't remember any good team winning without an ace.
Well, Porcello may be. What's his name?
Porcello.
Porcello may be an ace. If he pitches, they say he's on the upside. You know, he's not, you know, he's starting to pitch real good. He had 3 shutouts last year.
Right.
You know, during the year, he was pitching better than some of the stars in that team. So you don't know what he'll turn out to be. Buchholz should be a star, but we know about him as the bad back and the shoulder when he overthrows. So he's not throwing as hard as he used to.
You know, and this guy Miley, you know, how his stuff translates to the American League.
Good.
Who can say?
Not good.
I know that some people feel they have enough pitching to win the American League East. I think it's going to be a pretty wide open division. Toronto's always a threat. The Yankees, all they have to do is get healthy.
Who's going to get Scherzer? That's what I want to know.
Whoever's going to fork out the most money.
I mean, if
I
the
wouldn't be
Yankees
shocked.
pop him,
I wouldn't be surprised if he went back to Detroit at the end of the day. You know, just only a certain number of teams are going to be able to pay him.
the Yankees have been silent. They made the deal, though, with Prado when they got a pitcher from the National League. So hopefully he's half decent. But they got, you know, the Yankees haven't really.
Their lineup's getting old.
Oh, they are. Well, they need another bat in that middle of the lineup.
I mean, McCann really wasn't anything special
No,
last
I mean, you
year.
have Ellsbury, you have Gardner, two quick guys.
Yeah,
If they're at the
Gardner's
top,
pretty good.
they're at the top. McCann, if Teixeira is healthy, you know, that's going to be a key.
And A-Rod's going to DH,
A-Rod
supposedly.
will DH, and we'll see what happens. They got to get another hitter in the middle of that lineup, and then everybody else will get better.
I mean, I think the Red Sox lineup, if players just have average performance, they play to their ability. I mean, if a guy like Bogarts hits 15 home runs instead of doing nothing, as long as they don't mess with him, I think he'll be okay. We don't know what Castillo is going to give you. You have to figure that Sandoval and Hanley Ramirez will probably hit 20 home runs, have 80 RBIs, and be missing for 30 games with injuries.
Yeah, but the problem they have now, the Red Sox, is they really don't have any stars, you know, in the pitching staff like they've had over the last few years, even when they were terrible.
Well, the big problem is the bullpen. I mean, you look
at Uehara, they gave him $9 million?
I know, and they're going to have to restrict his innings. They still have Tazawa. They really don't have a lot beyond that. I imagine
they signed Breslow with $2 million.
Okay, great.
I don't know, if he goes back to where he was 2 years ago.
I know, relief pitchers aren't that consistent, but you know, look at what Kansas City did, and I think the Yankees, to an extent, are trying to do the same
Miller.
thing with a power bullpen.
Well, Miller and Betances,
Right.
and they, you know, I kind of wish they kept Robinson. Then they would have an unbelievable bullpen with the three of those guys. You get into the sixth inning, and it's all over.
Right. I mean, obviously, that's what the Royals did. They just tried to get you to the sixth and then try to overwhelm you with three arms.
Well, the Yankees got to hope Tanaka comes back healthy, and Pineda, and Sabathia. I mean, with Tanaka and Pineda, those two are 1 and 2. I mean, they're both.
Well, Sabathia was better when he was heavier. I don't know, when he lost the weight, it seemed like he just
Well,
fell
you're
apart.
hoping that he's a good 3 or 4 starter. You know, and I don't know what they did with McCarthy. Did you hear anything about that?
McCarthy went to the Dodgers.
No, so they lost McCarthy. McCarthy had a real good year from last year.
I think he signed, I want to say 4 years and $48 million.
Wow.
Which is, I mean, he had one good year.
Is that amazing?
I know. Well, it's, you know, that's the big thing. If you have one good year, you can cash in.
That's amazing. You should thank God he went to the Yankees, because that's when he started pitching really good. And
well, and teams throw money at you.
the Yankees have to be thinking Scherzer.
Now, my son would just make the argument, the owners have a lot of money to spend. You can't think of long-term deals the way you used to. Now, his argument is a guy like Trout should have just, you know, taken some money, got to free agent, and then signed year by year. He says, I'll sign for 1 year for $50 million. And he says, well, that's ridiculous money. He says, it's only 1 year. So you're not tying him down yourself to a huge deal. And it doesn't take too many years with $50 million and you have real money, right?
Oh, yeah. Or even like 35 if some of those other players are making close to 30, you know.
Well, Stanton's contract, I think it was 10 and 325 or something.
Yeah, but he's not getting much of it now.
No, all the money's up front. So, I mean, all the money's in the back.
Right.
So Florida's going to get rid of him after 3 years when they're paying him, I think, for 57, 58. And then, because they just don't pay. That's their...
That was a good move by Florida.
Right.
Because I saw that contract.
Well, what
I
are
said,
they,
"You gotta
are
be kidding
Miami?
me." Yeah, Miami, yeah.
You know.
But I mean, like, he's going to get like 11 million, 12 million, and 13, something like that over the next 3 years.
Right. It's not...
I
I
mean,
mean, it's huge money for,
Yeah.
you know, like normal
Well,
people.
someone's going to owe him the money at the end.
Right. Well, maybe he'll go to the Yankees.
How you give one guy that money in baseball? That's ridiculous. Basketball, I could see. You know, you got someone like LeBron James, you know, or Durant. I could see them making big, big money, because they should.
Well, there's only
'Cause
5 guys, so...
Yeah, there's 5 guys in the court, so you're going to dominate games better. But you got Stanton, you know, you got one player who's a fielder. I mean, most of the time they could walk him if he doesn't have good players around him.
Well, the big prize is out there still. Scherzer, obviously. Now, Tigers obviously they didn't win the World Series last year. They had Scherzer, Verlander, Price,
They're paying out big money,
Porcello.
though.
Right. I mean, it didn't happen for them.
And that was surprising with Price, too. When they got Price, everybody thought that they were going to be the team. And then look what happened with Oakland. I mean, I look at the Red Sox, and I just look at the Red Sox over the years. The Red Sox are going to have problems this year. I mean, they're not going to win it. You know, they may be okay because of the lineup, but if that pitching staff, they're going up against teams now that have good pitchers.
Well,
There's a lot of good pitching now in baseball.
Well, it kind of reminds me of maybe it was 75 when they had Tiant and Wise. They were really good pitchers, but they weren't kind of 20-game winner.
Right.
You know, they got close. I think Wise won 18 games, but you know, if Rick Wise is pitching, you didn't feel like, oh, we have no chance. It's Rick Wise. And it's not like Bob Gibson or Sandy Koufax or somebody. You know, and the same thing at this point, Sabathia, you know, if Sabathia is pitching, you don't feel like, well, it's CC Sabathia. You just say, yeah, that was the other guy.
No, yeah. Again, you know, players like that, Sabathia, you just hope they become good, solid three.
Well, even
stars.
Lester. I mean, Lester's a really good pitcher, but you know,
Not worth that money.
No, I mean, he's got it. More power to him. And if he hadn't,
He's had one good year.
if he had taken $20 million less, he would have been stupid. So I
mean, he's been
don't blame him.
right. He's been real strong in the playoffs, but he's really only had one
I
very
mean,
good year.
He's had cancer. He's taken care of his family. You know, more power to him. All right, Shields is not worth the money. I hope the Red Sox or the Yankees.
What's he looking for?
I think he's looking for an 80. He's not that good. I mean, he really isn't that good.
He didn't play good. He didn't pitch good in the playoffs either.
Right, and you know, obviously, it's one of these things where if you pitch well in the playoffs, they say, well, look, he pitched well in the playoffs. And if you don't, you just say, well, he pitched well during the season. You always get these like guys like Boris who's saying, well, the guy was great on Tuesday afternoons.
Well, if McCarthy got $12 million for 4 years, if he got $12 million for 4 years, you know he's going to get it. I would think, how old is he?
32.
I would give him $15 million for 4 years.
He'll get more. I mean, you know
You know,
how
he's
it is.
going to. I mean, that's what then I'd forget it. I go with a young pitcher then if he didn't want
Right.
it.
And then Hamels, I guess Philadelphia is asking for the sun and the stars
Forget
and the moon.
that.
So,
The Red Sox should say forget about it.
yeah, I mean, you have to hope that among all the young players that you're developing that you hit on a few of them, like Betts. I don't know if this Swihart guy is going to be as good as they say he is. Who knows?
But Betts, they got to find a spot for Betts. I don't know what they're going to do.
Well, I think he'll be.
Castillo's going to be in the center field,
I think
right?
they'll move Victorino for a song.
They'll move him, yeah. He's got 1 year left at
Right.
$14 million.
Right. You know,
Who
and then,
cares about the Red Sox anyway, Ron?
Well, we're still talking about other teams. You know, Hideki Kuroda, he hasn't signed with anybody yet.
No.
So, I mean, he's a good pitcher, and you know, I don't know if the Yankees are going to re-sign him.
I'm hoping, I'd like to see him re-sign him because you do need the fourth and fifth starters, but I'm looking for the Yankees. They need one more bat. They need one more bat or Scherzer. If they get Scherzer and they stay healthy, they're going to have the best pitching staff in baseball.
Well, let's switch to high school sports a little bit. I have not seen the hockey team play. I know you've seen the girls play, and the girls are 1-1-1 so far. Obviously, they
Don't they have 2 losses?
No, I think they have.
I thought they played Archbishop Williams the first game, unless it was a scrimmage.
I don't know. I thought they were 1-1-1. They've had some trouble scoring, but today they won 4-1. So maybe
Yeah, over Masco.
Right.
That's the same team I did their game when they lost to Masco. I think it was 3-1 in that game. And Masco, their defense was unbelievable. And I was a little down on Melrose because it was like they weren't really skating like I thought they would. But Masco's defense, they were all over Melrose. I said in the game, they have a lot of young players. You know, and that number 1 line, I said what I would do is either let the defensemen attack more because that's their best skaters on defense besides DeFryer and I forget Crooms. What's her name?
Sam Kroon.
Kroon. They're really good skaters. They're their 2 best skaters, but the 4 defensemen, the first 2 pairings on defense, you know, they have Gorman, Perry, Connolly, and Mercer, and they're tremendous. They're very good skaters. They're strong skaters. And my thinking was watching that because the rest of the team is young. My thinking was that the defensemen have to start putting pressure on if they're going to score goals. I may even move a defensive player to a line, but I hear in high school sports, and you hear from the people that know the sport better, that you start from your goalie, your defense to your line. So you want to be strong in the net. They got a freshman in the net, I believe, Avini, in the net. They've got very good defense, and their offense, their lines, the second line is very young. So
and then on
they're both young.
the boys' side, you know, it's going to take a while to really make an assessment for hockey and basketball because the football team that had so much success going to the Super Bowl, the kids had a very short transition to their other sport, and it's just different muscles, different conditioning setup. So I just think it's asking a kid a lot to go from a football player to a basketball player or a hockey player in a week.
Yeah, I was watching the boys hockey game against Belmont, just some of it, and all you were hearing was Zach Mercer from the announcer, Allen. Mercer was all over the ice. I mean, he's just a tremendous athlete. You saw him in football. Great football player.
You know, what's his name? Steve Pacheco of HomeNewsHere.com and Woburn Online had a nice preview of the Middlesex League basketball situation, and he had picked Melrose to win the Freedom Division.
They
Melrose,
lost the other day, didn't they?
They did lose to Belmont. Belmont's one of the stronger teams around.
They're in the other division.
They're in the large. Melrose has Colby Andrews back, who's a terrific. He's not really a.
But he rebounds.
Well, what's what I mean?
He got 12 rebounds the other day.
Right, he's an outstanding rebounder, although he's not the biggest player. And very tough on the boards. They have Anthony Gilardi, a senior, who's apparently a transfer from Malden, must have moved over the line. And Will Caffey's pretty good in the backcourt. They have a young point guard who's Mercer coming along. And you know, they're the typical Mike Kasperzak team, very athletic, aggressive defense, multiple defense. They switch between multiple zones, play some man-to-man, really aggressive. They'll be fine.
Yeah, and the girls are playing tonight. They're 1-1. They beat Winchester big. They lost to Belmont at Belmont. They were playing Arlington at Arlington tonight. I was going to go to the game until I forgot we had a show tonight. But
Well,
I haven't seen them yet. I want to see them because
it was hard to make a big assessment off Winchester. Team played well, but Winchester's not a strong team. That's not a commentary on Melrose. It's a commentary on Winchester.
Well, I'm looking for the girls to keep improving. I mean, they're youngish. I mean, they have seniors, they have juniors, they have sophomores.
You know, they have 3 players who scored at least 19 points in a game last year. Katie Sullivan, Ashley Harding, Kat Torpy. So they have a capable front line. Sarah Foote can really shoot the ball, you know, assuming that she gets the ball in the right opportunities. And we know the other sophomores besides Kat Torpy, Caroline Nolan, whose older sisters played point guard, Allie, Lenora Ivers, and Victoria Crovo. Victoria had a double-double in the first game. And these girls, you know, another parent came up to me who's not a parent of one of these sophomores and said, when the sophomores are out there, they really know how to play. And, you know, we want to see those girls do well as the whole team because we've had a lot of experience coaching those girls over 4 years, and we think those girls do know how to play.
Yeah, I mean, I think the team, I predicted, I was talking to some parents at one of my practices. The high school just finished up a scrimmage, and I told them I think they have a shot of going 15-5.
Yeah, I think that's.
I really do.
I think that's reasonable if they play to their capability.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you look at, I'd like to see them get Katie Sullivan involved more down low. You know, you have to find your identity as a team, and I think if you pound the ball down to Katie, you got girls like Kat, you got Victoria now down low, get it down low. You know, I mean, that should be their identity, I would think. And then once teams start doubling up down low, you have Foot who can shoot, you have Lenora who can shoot, Caroline can shoot. You know, you have, I don't know all the names of the girls, but, you know, I would think that you would overpower teams with what you have down there, especially with Victoria playing with Katie and Kat down low and the other girls. You have Harding.
Well, there's an old saying in basketball, like in warfare, you don't give everyone the same number of bullets. So you really have to get the most shots for your scorers.
But I think they're going in the right direction, and they have a lot of young talent on that team. They have Doherty down, the freshman down with the JVs. I thought she would make the varsity, and I thought she'd be playing some point guard, but she may eventually. I haven't seen it, but I like her game. So you have Caitlin down there, and Ann, the girls we coach. They're talented, very good defensive players. They know the game well. So I think the future is really bright. You know, I like some of the players on that junior class. I like Foote. I like Bornstein. And is it Smith?
Right.
She's power. She
So,
was very good in the
they
JV last
they have
year.
plenty of talent, and just how it meshes together. And the other teams are trying to win too. Watertown's really good, and Woburn's very good.
And I hear Tewksbury's pretty good too. But a lot of teams lost seniors last year. That's why I think Merrill's. I mean, they had Jill McGinnis, who had a very good year, especially as the year went on last year. And a couple of their players, seniors, got hurt. And Maeve got hurt. But you look at it, a lot of the real good teams lost a lot of seniors. So you look at it, and Merrill's is young with talent, so I would think.
Well, we're anticipating a very successful season. I've enjoyed being with you. I'm Ron Sen.
And I'm Ralph LaBella, and thank you for watching Let's Talk Sports.